Hello, I am Mark Armstrong from TruePar America, and we're here today to talk to you about our Hyundai 250D-9 product. You folks in the gas and oil industry have a great need for this equipment to lift the sandboxes on the pad at the yard site. So we want to try to partner with you folks to help you and your operators be as knowledgeable about the equipment as they possibly can be. Operators, when you're doing your daily checks, you want to walk around the equipment and you want to take a look at the tires. The tires are a very crucial piece of keeping the stability of the unit. Each one of these tires on these units are foam filled and they weigh approximately 1,100 pounds. They are secured to the hubs via the lug nuts, which is, if you can see closely, these have been torqued and marked. So in your general inspection each day, if you see the marks on the nut and the stud are no longer aligned, then that's going to indicate that the nut is loosening, and you're going to want to let your supervisor know, or somebody in maintenance know. You also too want to make certain that the sidewalls have no cuts in them. These are foam filled, but nonetheless though they're not indestructible. Now you have the steer tires, the steer axle, and also the drive axle up front. So 6 tires total. But just a quick look at the tires themselves and also the lug nuts will help ensure safe use. As an operator, you want to make certain that all of the lights are functioning on the piece of equipment that you're operating. These outer portions here are simply reflectors, but you have your brake and tail lights, reverse lights, rear work lamps. This portion here is actually a rear view camera, so that the operator can see what's behind them while operating the unit in reverse. We're at the front of the unit now. We have the headlights here, turn signals, the upper work lights. As an operator, you want to make certain that those are operating, and you want to check those before and every shift. Now I'd like to discuss the fluids in the machine. There are several lubricants within the machine that the operator can easily check. One of those lubricants is the hydraulic oil. As indicated right here in the sight glass, the fluid level would need to be between the upper and lower red bands. If it's within that range, then the hydraulic oil is sufficient. So now we're going to take a look at the other side of the unit. Some other critical fluids on the Hyundai 250D-9 is the DEF fluid. The acronym stands for diesel exhaust fluid. The diesel exhaust fluid the level needs to be maintained. This fluid is important for the after treatment system to function and do its job treating the exhaust gases. DEF fluid is very sensitive to cold, heat. The DEF system is very sensitive to debris and dirt. So you want to use extreme caution and make certain that the containers that you're using contains clean DEF fluid and there's no dirt around the inlet to the DEF tank. Very important. One of the other critical fluids on the unit here is the brake cooling oil. The brake cooling oil is actually the oil that is in a reservoir that is circulated through the drive axle. The purpose of this is so that this oil will keep the brake friction discs cool, and it has its own separate reservoir, and it is a filtered system. Typically it takes about 12 gallons to service this system, so that's another area that you do want to make certain that the oil is at the proper level. The lids have a locking cap. If the lid is locked, then you're going to need to unlock the cap prior to checking the oil. The cap contains a self-included dipstick and will indicate the proper fluid level on the dipstick. You want to check these oils while the machine is off. Another tank we have on here is actually the fuel tank. This lid here will lock as well. If you need to fill the fuel tank, if it is locked, indeed, you will have to unlock it in order to gain access. But it's a good feature to have these caps be able to lock. Lastly, one of the other major fluids to check is the engine oil. You want to make certain that the engine oil is checked on a daily basis and that the crankcase is filled to the proper level with the proper lubricant. As you can see inside of the engine compartment, the engine oil dipstick is located on the right hand side of the engine and is indicated with a yellow knob. This fluid should be checked before each shift or whenever suspected it may need oil. Now let's talk about the electrical compartment. On the 250D-9s, on the right hand side, above the first step but between the second step, we have our battery compartment. Within the battery compartment you have a master cutoff switch. That will remove any and all power. If you're going to leave the unit out of service for any extended period of time, you want to make certain that you switch to the off position. That way that takes away any draw off the battery. As an operator though, you want to take a look at the connections in the battery. You want to make certain that the battery cables located here are connected to the appropriate terminals and are tight and are not corroded. There's some interconnecting links that connect the batteries together to tie them in series. You want to make certain that those are in place. Outside of that, you want to make certain that the battery hold down is in place so that the batteries do not have the ability to move about in the battery compartment. Okay, well, let's talk about the forks. The forks are a very important and crucial item on the fork truck because they are responsible for engaging and lifting the load. As an operator, you want to inspect these on a daily basis. Some of the things that you want to look out for is just the physical appearance of the fork. You want to make certain that there is no damage. You don't see anything out of place on the forks themselves. They actually are equipped with several rollers to accommodate the fork positioning. On the top of the fork, you have 4 horizontal rollers at the very top, which have 4 lubrication points, as indicated here. In addition to that, you have 4 horizontal rollers at the top, and they too have their own lubrication point. Near the bottom of the fork, we have 2 vertical rollers. They themselves have their own lubrication point as well. That covers all of the rollers that are actually on the forks themselves. So it's very crucial that these be lubricated on a regular basis and inspected on a daily basis. Now we're going to talk about the carriage load rollers. The carriage is equipped with 6 load rollers, 3 on each side. In addition to that, it's equipped with 4 thrust rollers, 2 on each side. What's critical about the carriage is that the lubrication points. As you can see here, I have an area circled in white. This is for the lubrication point for the upper load roller. Right below this area here, on the back side of the carriage, is the grease fitting for the upper thrust roller. Now, if you look below, you can see this is the lubrication point for the lower load roller, and then also the lubrication point for the lower thrust roller. Now, if you remember what I'd said that there was actually 6 rollers. So that gives us 2 lubrication points for 2 thrust rollers, 2 lubrication points for load rollers, but yet no lubrication point for the center load roller, as it's on a brass collared bushing and does not have a lubrication point, unlike the others that do. Okay, now folks, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the upright rollers. Now, the upright has a load roller, one on this side at the top, and it also has one on the opposing side. Right below the load roller, there is a thrust roller. That roller prevents the upright from going side to side. Now, on the thrust roller, it has a remote lubrication point, which is via a tube which runs down the side of the mast, and there is a grease fitting at the bottom of the tube. The load rollers, I wanted to point out that they do have a spherical bearing in the center of the load roller, so they actually have the ability to adjust for certain movement. It's not a rigid or like a tapered roller bearing, so there is some flexibility there. In addition to that, we have the chain shift which is the portion that the chain rides over. There is a lubrication point for that as well. On the outer side of the upright, there is a grease fitting so that operators or technicians can lubricate the chain shift. Again, load rollers up the top. There's also 2 load rollers on the bottom, which you can't see from this angle. The other critical item are the lift chains, which are located right here. You want to make certain that the chains are in place, obviously, and the chain anchors are tight, and we don't have any damage to the chains. If you do suspect that there is damage or they need service, then by all means let your supervisor know, and they can schedule someone to rectify that. Okay, getting back to what I was talking about earlier about the chain anchors, to give you a better an idea and a better illustration, as you can see here, this is actually the chain anchor that's on the carriage. There's a locking plate, there's a jam nut that will keep the anchors in place. Now mind you, there's one on both ends of the chains, the other one is at the top of the upright, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I was referring to there just a moment ago. Another thing that I touched on was the lubrication point or remote lubrication point for the upper thrust roller. That is right here. And it's right on the side of the mast so that someone can easily lubricate that, as you can see here in the photo. But other than that, I think that we have covered just about all we need to cover at this point in time. Thanks, have a great day.